Hi guys, Big Monday here, and today we're doing a quick review of the Western Digital Elements portable hard drive. This one's a 500GB version. As you can see, the packaging's not massive, so obviously it's a 2.5-inch drive. It's got, the packaging seems a little bit understated, but like a lot of companies, Western Digital appear to be cottoning on to the fact that it doesn't need to have a big box to look like a decent quality piece of kit. So I'll quickly show you all the writing. If you want to read this properly, then pause the video. Try and make sure I don't get the screen glare. There you go. There's not a great deal on this one. Not a lot to read. It's basically it's a very simple little hard drive, very neat. So just put that to one side. Got a little manual. This is a bit of a big manual for a hard drive. It's hardly complicated. I think it's because it's got like 20 different languages. So USB cable. This is one of the small issues I've got with the drive. The USB cable is a little bit rigid and a little bit short. Now, most USB 3 cables do tend to be a lot more rigid than USB 2. There's just more to them. So you kind of expect a little bit more rigidity, but I don't think that's an excuse. You know, it could be better. But the main issue is the length. Now, as you can see, it's not very long at all. This is pathetic. I mean, if I'm going to plug this into a laptop next to, and it's going to sit next to my laptop, then this is fine. But if I'm going to connect this to my desktop, then this is woefully short. Now, you can buy USB 3 leads, but I don't see why they could not have made this at least a little bit longer. Because this isn't long enough to put this on my desktop and have the hard drive on my desk. I can put it on top of my base unit, but in my house I have cats and they tend to knock things off. Again, I just want a bit of flexibility to put it where I want rather than having to sit it right next to the base unit. In my case too, or in a lot of cases, sorry, your USB 3 port is going to be on the back, and by the time I've gone from the USB ports, which are at the bottom of mine, to the top of the case, I'm left with about that much cable. There's just not a lot. This is just too short. Now, as a lot of people ask me this a lot, so please bear in mind, if we just get that in focus, if you have a USB 3 drive and you plug it into a USB 2 port, it will still work. The difference is it will run at USB 2 speeds. Because the two main differences of USB 3 are it provides more power and it's much faster. Now, USB 2 provides enough power for a small hard drive like this anyway, so it doesn't need the extra power, but it's the extra data for the extra speed that's the big deal. So it will work in USB 2, it's just that it will be slower. So let's take this out. So I like the aesthetics of this drive. It comes in several different colours. I think they come in like a silvery white, a blue, a red. Most of Western Digital's drives come in those colours. But it's just a very basic design. It does feel very robust and very well made. I'm not going to test it by throwing it around. But if you're not familiar with these, let's see if I can get a closer image of the ports. I'm going to have trouble getting it to focus, but just about. Now what you can see, if you look on the ports with a USB 3, basically it's split. Let's see if I can get a better image of it on the cable. You can see it's sort of split into two parts. On one side you've got what is effectively a normal micro USB, and then another little bit next to it. On the other end, on a full size one, it just looks like a normal USB port. The reason it's different on the micro one is because on micro ones it's just too small. whereas on a full-size USB plug, the extra pins are just hidden away between the other ones. So if you, like I say, it will work in just any old USB port. It works exactly the same. Just make sure you plug it in a blue USB port. And that's what I'll be doing shortly. So, let's say, there's not a lot I can really say about a hard drive. It feels nice. The capacity is good. It was well priced. I definitely recommend these. So, I think that's about it. I'm going to move on to the performance tests now. So, give me a minute to switch camera, and we'll get down to the big details. Now, the performance is exactly the reason why I wanted to do the review of this drive. I've never really reviewed external hard drives before, and that's because most of the time I focus on like gaming gear, and external hard drives not really great for gaming. I thought I'd do it though because this is a USB 3 hard drive, and a lot of people don't seem to appreciate the difference you get in performance between a USB 3 and a USB 2 hard drive. Now, I've done this at several different block sizes. I've done a 512 bytes block, 4 kilobytes block, 64 kilobytes, and then an 8 megabytes block. So if you want to compare it to different benchmarks, then you've got a couple of different variations there. But mainly I just wanted to show how fast this drive can be, and its sort of access time. Now, the access time is not really that critical. It's mostly the fact that I'm looking at the transfer speed, because USB 2 you'll only get sort of 20 to 30 megabytes per second. It's not really capable of much more. Theoretically, USB 2 can go faster, but in practice, you know, you're not going to go much above 30 megabytes per second. And as you'll see from the last two benchmarks of this, this drive gets well in excess of 30 megabytes per second. It's pretty much on par with sort of the low to mid-range internal drives. Considering this is a small 2.5-inch drive, the performance figures from this drive are actually really good, and this drive is really good value for money. It's only around the £50 mark. And with it being USB 3, it's going to save you a lot of time if you're copying a lot of files back and forth. Now, the low-end performance figures with the 512 byte block size are pretty poor. But from a rotational hard drive, that's to be expected. By doing really small transfers, we are basically testing how this copes with really small files. But practically speaking, you're never going to use a hard drive where you only do like half kilobyte files. It's just not going to happen. Now, the 64 kilobyte blocks, so that might be a bit more practical, but still, if you're copying photos even, they're going to be more like a couple of megabytes. So the last benchmark I've done, this is going to be the most accurate. That was an 8 megabyte block size. So that's going to show a more practical use of this drive for what you're going to be using it for. And in that case, it gets, you know, a minimum speed of 55 megabytes per second, which seemed to be a bit of a low score compared to the rest of the drive. It averaged nearly 90 megabytes per second across the drive. It got 16.5 milliseconds access time, which isn't fantastic, but this is a portable drive. Usually you end up with slightly lower access time over USB, and what we're really looking for is good transfer rates, because this is a storage drive at the end of the day. Access time's only really an issue if you're gaming. So if this was a USB 2 drive, we'd only be seeing sort of 30 megabytes per second. If you plug this drive into a USB 2 port, you'll only see about 30 megabytes per second. And that's what it comes down to with a USB 3 drive. And USB 3 is not expensive. It's backwards compatible with USB 2, so there is no reason to not get a USB 3 drive. And massive plus points, even if you're not going to use the USB 3 now, maybe your computer doesn't support it, get a USB 3 drive. This cost you know, only £1 or £2 more than a USB 2 equivalent, and this is going to save me a load of time copying large files back and forth. I take disk images a lot, and huge amounts of photo and music and backups for customers when I'm doing repairs, and this is going to save a lot of time. So if you do want a external hard drive, definitely go USB 3, and this particular one, it feels really well built, so I'd certainly recommend it. It's great value for money. And I'm not sponsored by Western Digital, it's completely independent. So guys, if you found this useful, I would appreciate the like as always, and I will see you soon guys. Have a great day.